Hi, I'm Sean Holyfield, CEO and founder of Amazing Workplace. I'm super happy that you're here. So, we created Amazing Workplace with the goal of empowering or allowing other organizations to create an amazing workplace. What does that even mean? What it means is that you have a workplace that people admire, look up to, think fondly of. And every company, no matter who you are, is going to do better if your reputation in the marketplace is one that people think fondly of, one that people admire, one that people go, wow, what a great place to work, what a great company, or what great products and services. And that's really what creating an amazing workplace is all about, which is just simply creating a workplace that people really admire and look up to. And there's lots of ways to achieve that. And there's many things that organizations do, and they achieve that every single day, whether or not they're working with us or not. But the tools that we've created really dig into the root or sole cause of success within a business. And that is, of course, your people. Every organization, in order to be successful, has to have people. Now, that could be customers, because if you don't have people to buy your products and services, you're not going to be successful. Or it could be employees, which are the people within your organization that make everything possible day in, day out. So Amazing Workplace focuses both on customer happiness and employee happiness. But today, we're going to talk about employee happiness and why that's really the best place to start as you're growing a business, or if you're a multinational organization and you have employees all over the world, how to use your employees, how to use employee happiness to help drive the things that need to be driven within your company in order to achieve creating an amazing workplace. So, employee happiness is what we measure. It's a very unique, different thing. In fact, we have the registered trademark on employee happiness in the United States. And employee happiness is all about knowing how our people actually feel, as well as why they feel that way, so that we can take action that matters. We'll talk more about that in a moment. But I get asked a lot, why employee happiness? Well, if you haven't seen the news, you haven't read the articles from Harvard Business Review, Forbes, all sorts of publications, there's an increasing body of evidence that points to the fact that happy employees are the ones that we want inside of our workplace. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but I'm going to break it down super simply. We all know that people are our most valuable asset within an organization. And that starts at home. It starts with the team that we have in place to deliver products and services to our customers, as well as the team we have in place to run operations within our organization. What I'm covering is not something that's brand new or something that most people haven't thought of. Most everybody would agree, or at least when asked, most people would agree. What's your most valuable asset? Leader after leader, company after company will point to their people, their employees. So, if we know factually that employees are the most important component part of your organization, then it's probably worth taking a moment to break down how to actually handle the people problem, or how to handle the people issue within every organization, which is, how do I get the best people? How do I get them to get things done or be productive? And how do I keep them? And that's the breakdown as it relates to people. People are not a problem. People aren't the issue, right? Every organization does well with their people, and some do better or worse than others. But the most successful companies, the most amazing workplaces, are the ones that have really figured out that getting the best people, getting them to get things done, and keeping them is the key to success in order to achieve the goals and aims you have as a workplace. And it all comes back to your employees. So let's talk about these three things in a little bit more detail. In order to get the best people, we've got to recruit those people. We've got to go out and get them. We've got to find a way to get in front of them in a way that they're going to be interested in working with our organization. And that's where employee happiness comes in, because employee happiness is an absolute recruiting rocket. It's the jet fuel that gets your recruiting off the ground. If everyone in the world knew that your people were happy coming to work every day, if everyone knew that your workplace had happy employees that actually looked forward to coming to work, they felt very glad, right? Coming to work, which is the origin of the word happiness, going back to 1150 or so. If they knew that people were happy, they're much more likely to be interested in reaching out to your organization to get a job, and they're also more likely to take a job. So employee happiness is key to recruiting. And if you doubt this at all, then just look at the opposite of what I just said. Look at a website like Glassdoor, for example, that focuses and thrives on negative reviews predominantly. I recognize there's some people that love Glassdoor, but a lot of workplaces don't typically love Glassdoor. And it's actually one of the key things you can point to in terms of like the opposite of what I just said, because Glassdoor highlights all the negatives about companies typically, and people that are applying for jobs, they go look at Glassdoor, and if the reviews are negative, they won't even apply. So we already have evidence out in the marketplace that employee happiness is very important for recruiting. It's also why so many companies go after awards or recognition or other accolades to try to promote to the world that their employees are happy. So having happy employees and letting the world know that your employees are happy is a great way to recruit. But if you're not measuring employee happiness and you can't prove that your employees are happy, you're missing out on this opportunity. Number 2, productivity. There was a joint study done by British Telecom and Oxford University. And that study in the early 2020s, so like 3 years ago, proved that happy employees, not just satisfied, but happy employees get up to 15% more done in a given day. So if you're running a $100 million organization and you can improve productivity by 15% by measuring and improving employee happiness, that's a great way to improve profitability and productivity, reduce costs, and so forth. So the idea that happiness improves productivity is not a new one, but it is one that was recently proven out through a joint study with Oxford and British Telecom. It's also common sense. When people are upset or frustrated at work, they're far less likely to get things done. They're not likely to get a lot done if they're pissed off or upset. In fact, probably my least productive days are the days where I'm upset myself and where I'm pissed off. So productivity absolutely is connected to employee happiness in a meaningful way. The third, of course, for people and success through people is retention, keeping our people. You've built a great team, your team is playing well, you want to keep those players on your team. Well, the reason people leave jobs is they're not happy. They're upset, they're frustrated, and when they go to talk to a loved one, they go to talk to a friend, what they're talking about when they meet with that person and that person asks them, why are you leaving your job? I thought you loved working there. The person instantly goes into talking about how they're not happy working in there and why they're leaving. And as they talk about the job that they're about to take, they talk about why they feel like they would be happier working there versus the way they felt at their company. So turnover is completely connected to employee happiness. The happier your employees are, the less likely they are to leave. The more unhappy they are, the more likely they are to leave. So turnover is also reduced and or retention is improved through happy employees. So when we look at people, employees within an organization, and we know that the 3 most important things to do with people is to recruit the best people, get them to be productive, and to retain them. And we also know that happiness directly connects to the success or lack thereof in recruiting, the increase or decrease of productivity, and the likelihood of retaining your people or them leaving. Then isn't it time to actually measure employee happiness instead of all the other things that are measured? We'll talk about some of those things in other videos, but it's kind of common sense that if I actually have a way to measure how my people feel, why they feel that way, and then I can take action that matters based on those feelings and based on those whys, if I actually had a platform that measured how my people feel, that told me why they're happy or not happy, and then empowered or allowed me to smartly figure out what action I could take to improve happiness, why would I measure anything else? And I know we're not alone in Amazing Workplace. There are many articles that have been published, I mentioned this earlier, that have talked about the value of measuring employee happiness, the value of happiness as it relates to productivity, the value of happiness as it relates to attracting the best talent, and the value of happiness in terms of retaining your people. So for those out there that were wondering about employee happiness or why it's something that's so important, why is it that people are talking about it? This is why people are talking about it. Because when we talk about employees, when we talk about the most valuable resource for every organization, recruiting, productivity, and retention are the key things to success through your people. And employee happiness is the only thing that directly, positively impacts all three. None of the other surveys that are out there, none of the other platforms that are out there, engagement doesn't work, satisfaction doesn't work. And prior to those two, most people don't realize that in the US, we were measuring morale. And for 100 years, morale, satisfaction, and/or engagement have been measured. And if you look at the statistics that are published by these organizations that measure this, one for one, the statistics are flat, meaning that the numbers have not gone up. The average satisfaction has been at or just above below 60% for 45 years. And it's as a result of that lack of increase that companies that did surveys shifted from satisfaction to engagement. Engagement, similarly, has been out there for about 20 years. It's not improved. If you look at the studies that are done by Gallup or Culture Amp or Qualtrics, they all point to the same conclusion. Engagement has actually stayed level or gone down over time. And prior to those two buckets of measurement, companies were measuring something called morale. And morale, similarly, didn't go up for almost 30 years, which is why it switched from morale to satisfaction, satisfaction to engagement. So these individual things that are being measured, they don't directly connect to recruiting, productivity, or retention. Nobody takes a job because they feel like they're going to be more engaged. Nobody leaves a job and goes and tells a loved one, I left that job because I didn't really feel engaged. In fact, 6 out of 10 employees don't even know what engagement means, according to Gartner. Similarly, you don't walk up to somebody that you love and say, hey, I'm really satisfied with our relationship, and that creates some great outcome. You typically would say something like, I love being in this relationship, or I love you a lot, or I'm really happy with our relationship. So happiness is what's talked about, not satisfaction. And satisfaction and happiness are not the same thing. Happiness is a word that, according to Rome, Italy, was created around 1150. 300 years later, the word satisfaction was created. Happiness directly translated to a feeling of feeling very glad. Satisfaction is having enough. Those are not the same things. They get mushed together a lot. The process of taking two definitions and squishing them together into one is called conflation or conflating. So happiness and satisfaction has been conflated over time, but we, for the first time, have really broken this out and identified that they're not the same word and they don't mean the same thing. And of course, in our day-to-day lives, we know it doesn't mean the same thing as well. The idea that people can and are happy at work is a real one, and there are ways to improve happiness at work. So how do you do that? Well, first, you need to start by measuring employee happiness. An Amazing Workplace actually measures employee happiness through a conversation system. So what we did is we went back in time and we looked at all of the research from the beginning of employee surveys all the way coming forward to today. We gathered every question, every statement, every way of measuring that has ever existed, and we put it into a giant file. And then we just started analyzing and researching even deeper. And what we discovered was that way, way back when, we're talking before, over 100 years ago, before World War II, there was a company that would actually go out and meet with your people in person, sit down with them and find out how they felt. And they would find out why they felt that way. And then they would deliver to senior management action that they could take that actually mattered based on how people felt and why they felt that way. Now, come forward in time, and in World War II, there were a number of behavioral psychologists that were hired by the federal government to measure how people felt about World War II. And that's really when surveys started to really take off. And Rensis Likert, not Likert, it's pronounced Likert, developed a scale that we're all very familiar with. And that's the Likert scale. And the Likert scale is strongly agree, agree, neither disagree or agree, disagree or strongly disagree. That scale got adopted and used in order to try to get more surveys out more quickly and responses back more quickly. And it allowed the survey senders, as well as the people that were receiving the information, to attach numbers to the responses that were provided, which allowed it, like scoring, right, is the word that gets used in modern surveys, scoring of the results. People liked that at the time because there was a way to actually get a number attached to what was being done. Now, in that moment, Rensis and the team moved far away from what was being done previously that was successful. Because prior Terensis coming in and creating the Likert scale and people using it, what was happening is we were having real conversations with our people about how they felt, why they felt that way, and we had action that mattered. Now, I'm not saying that Likert's scale is completely unusable. There's a lot of benefits to it, but we did move away from what was really working. And if you look at the statistics as published by those survey companies that have used the Likert scale, and companies like Qualtrics or Gallup or Culture Amp, all these companies use the Likert scale or some version of the Likert scale, and they all create their own scoring. So if you're using Gallup and you're measuring engagement and you're looking at the average engagement or what's good, 30-ish% is good. If you're using Qualtrics or Culture Amp, completely different. 60%, 70% is good. So they're all using different scoring methods. In fact, other companies use a 1 to 10 scale. Some companies use a +3, -3 scale. The scales and the measurements are all different company to company. It creates a lot of confusion. But all that said, we moved far away from what was working way back when. And what we discovered is that if you create a conversation system, a software that interacts with your people like a real conversation, a software that introduces topics, asks them how they feel about those topics, making sure that they understood what they were just being asked, and then digs into why they feel that way, if they're happy, or why they feel that way if they're not yet happy. What that results in is the ability to take action that matters to your people so that you can genuinely improve employee happiness within your organization. And even more importantly, if your people are actually happy about things, you can keep things the way they are. Because the last thing you want to do is actually screw shit up that's going well, right? So employee happiness is all about understanding how our people feel, as well as why they feel that way, so that we can take action that matters. The entire Amazing Workplace platform is built around this conversation system, where you can reach out to your employees, actually measure for the first time and understand how they feel, not with arbitrary black box scoring, not with numbers, +10, -10, +3, -3, 0 to 100 scales, but actual genuine understanding of exactly how your people feel and why they feel that way. This is a brief overview of why it's so critically important to measure employee happiness in the workplace, as well as we've talked a little bit about some of the differentiators between what Amazing Workplace does with employee happiness, what others do. We'll have more videos that kind of break down the science behind all this, as well as some other detailed information, the history of engagement surveys, satisfaction surveys, morale surveys. But I was asked to do this overview, and hopefully this has provided some basic information for you to better understand Amazing Workplace, why we measure employee happiness, and why it's so valuable to your organization. All right, thanks for being here.